The Supreme Court deciding whether you even have the right or opportunity to vote for Donald Trump. We'll give you all the details. Plus, Joe Biden talking to more dead people. Is everybody okay with this? And you've got a brand new Captain Jack Sparrow, and she looks a lot different than Johnny Depp. Oh, and Hillary Clinton is with us. We've got all that and a whole lot more coming up right now. Hey there, it's Larry O'Connor. Please call me Larry, and thanks for tuning in. Thanks for clicking in and viewing what we've got to offer you. We appreciate our ever-growing audience. And if you could, just take a quick second to subscribe to this video and click those notification bells, because we do love forcing Google and YouTube to send you a text message to let you know we've got a brand new segment for you. We appreciate it. And it annoys Google, so we like that too. All right, as we speak, the Supreme Court is hearing arguments in the case of the state of Colorado deciding unilaterally through the Supreme Court that Donald Trump cannot appear on the presidential ballot. Now, they made this argument based on the 14th Amendment that says a person guilty of insurrection against the United States can't hold federal office. But see, here's the problem. Donald Trump hasn't actually been charged with insurrection, let alone convicted. He hasn't had due process. He hasn't even been able to defend himself against a charge that hasn't even been levied against him. But that's not stopping the state of Colorado. They went ahead and decided that the people of that state can't vote for Donald Trump. They don't have the opportunity to do it. The arguments are going on right now, and we've got a little snapshot here into how they're going. We'll start with Clarence Thomas, because his line of questioning was, well, rather brilliant. And the person who's making the case that you shouldn't be able to vote for Donald Trump, he floundered. He floundered a lot. Watch.
States have created under their Article 1 and Article 2 powers to run elections.
But it would seem that particularly after Reconstruction and after the Compromise of 1877 and during the period of Redeemers, that you would have that kind of conflict. There were a plethora of Confederates still around. There were any number of people who would continue to either run for state offices or national offices. So it would seem that would suggest that there would at least be a few examples of national candidates being disqualified.
Now, I'm going to let you finish, Justice Thomas, in just a second, but I just want to point out for you all how important this line of questioning is. First of all, Clarence Thomas is doing something really pesky that the left hates when he does. He's actually bringing up history. He's actually bringing up the facts at hand at the time the 14th Amendment was voted on, ratified, and passed. He's bringing up the context and the reason why we have a 14th Amendment. It has to do with the Confederacy. It has to do with the Civil War. And at the time, they wanted to make sure that anybody who waged war in insurrection against the United States of America in the Civil War would not hold federal office. It's that clear. It's that simple. And so what Clarence Thomas is asking here, and then I'll let you see how this questioning goes, but he's asking something very simple. Since the advent of the 14th Amendment, in the middle of the 19th century, over 160 years ago, has there been one example where a state, like Colorado is doing right now, where a state has precluded a person from running for office, for federal office, based on the 14th Amendment provisions? He's asking for one example in the history of the country since the time this was passed. Give me one example, counselor, of this happening before. Now watch how the questioning goes.
If your reading is correct.
Well, there were certainly national candidates who were disqualified by Congress refusing to seat them.
I understand that, but that's not this case. Did states disqualify them? That's what we're talking about here. I understand Congress would not seat them.
Other than the example I gave, no. But again, Your Honor, that's not surprising because there wouldn't have been, states certainly wouldn't have the authority to remove a sitting.
So what's the purpose
officer.
of what was the purpose of the Section 3? The states were sending people. The concern was that the former Confederate states would continue being bad actors. And the effort was to prevent them from doing this. And you're saying that, well, this also authorized states to disqualify candidates. So what I'm asking you for, if you are right, what are the examples?
Well, Your Honor, the examples are states excluded many candidates for state office, individuals holding state offices. We have a number of published cases of states
I
considering
understand that. I understand the states controlling state elections and state positions. What we are talking about here are national candidates. I understand. You look at Foner or Foote, Shelby Foote, or McPherson, they all talk about, of course, the conflict after the Civil War. And there were people who felt very strongly about retaliating against the South, the radical Republicans. But they did not think about authorizing the South to disqualify national candidates. And that's the argument you're making. And what I would like to know is do you have any examples of this?
Many of those historians have filed briefs in our support in this case, making the point that the idea of the 14th Amendment was that both states and the federal government would ensure rights, and that if states failed to do so, the federal government certainly would also step in. But I think the reason why there aren't examples of states doing this is an idiosyncratic one of the fact that elections worked differently back then. States have a background power under Article 2 and the 10th Amendment to run presidential elections. They didn't use that power to police ballot access until about the 1890s. And by the 1890s, everyone had received amnesty and these issues had become moot. So I don't think the history tells us.
Sort of look at Justice Thomas's question sort of from the 30,000 foot level. I mean, the whole point of the 14th Amendment was to restrict state power, right? States shall not abridge privileges, immunity. They won't deprive people of property without due process. They won't deny equal protection. And on the other hand, it augmented federal power under Section 5. Congress has the power to enforce it. So wouldn't that be the last place that you'd look for authorization for the states, including Confederate states, to enforce, implicitly authorized, to enforce the presidential election process? That seems to be a position that is at war with the whole thrust of the 14th Amendment and very ahistorical.
So huge. And that's, of course, Chief Justice John Roberts jumping in there at the end. And listen, it's a lot of talk, and I appreciate your patience here going through this video here, which is really just an audio track of these arguments. But you see what they're getting at. There's absolutely no historical basis for what Colorado did here, ever. And you even heard the lawyer representing Colorado there conceding the fact that 30 years after the Civil War, this was moot. They actually rescinded any restrictions on anybody who may have participated in the Confederacy 30 years after the 14th Amendment was ratified. So even that aspect of the 14th Amendment, and the whole reason the 14th Amendment was passed, was rendered moot 30 years later. And now they're trying to employ it against Donald Trump in 2024, 160 years later. And there's literally no historical basis for it, not for a state to do this. And John Roberts at the end there made the point. What you're suggesting that the state can do here is ludicrous on the face of it, that the idea that the 14th Amendment was ever meant to be employed here, because the whole point of the 14th Amendment was to stop the Confederate states from presenting someone from the Confederacy for federal office. So, of course, the state Supreme Court would not come in and tell the state not to do what the federal government was keeping the state from doing. It's the federal government's job to do that. It would be Congress that would do it. That's the whole point. There's no way Colorado can unilaterally make this decision. Oh, but I know what you may be saying. That's Clarence Thomas and John Roberts. They're crazy right-wing Republicans, right? They might as well be insurrectionists too. Okay, you're not saying that, but you know your liberal buddy is saying it. Okay, well, how about Elena Kagan? She also jumped into the questioning, and she asked, honestly, one of the most fundamental, important questions of this entire proceeding.
Most boldly, I think that the question that you have to confront is why a single state should decide who gets to be president of the United States. In other words, this question of whether a former president is disqualified for insurrection to be president again is, just say it. It sounds awfully national to me. So whatever means there are to enforce it would suggest that they have to be federal, national means. Why does, if you weren't from Colorado and you were from Wisconsin or you were from Michigan, and it really, what the Michigan Secretary of State did is going to make the difference between, whether candidate A is elected or candidate B is elected. I mean, that seems quite extraordinary, doesn't it?
So you'll hear the answer in a second, but this is, again, a fundamental issue here. When you heard her say, it sounds pretty national to me. If you're saying that a president is ineligible to run if he has been found to have caused an insurrection against the United States, that's all federal office, federal discussion stuff, not something that a single state can decide for the rest of us. And by the way, just a quick tangent, that's the argument many of us were making after the election of 2020, when we saw single states using brand new and unqualified and untried and trusted methods of counting and accumulating and qualifying their ballots to determine who the members of the Electoral College would be. Why should one state like Georgia or Arizona or Pennsylvania or Michigan or Wisconsin be able to decide for the rest of the country who the president's going to be based on these brand new crazy methods of qualifying mail-in ballots and determining whether those ballots were fraudulent or not? But I digress on that only a little bit, because that's what got us to January 6th in the first place. But let's get back to the argument here.
No, Your Honor, because ultimately it's this court that's going to decide that question of federal constitutional eligibility and settle the issue for the nation. And certainly it's not unusual that questions of national importance come up.
Well, I
through a
suppose
particular
this court would be saying something along the lines of that a state has the power to do it. But I guess I was asking you to go a little bit further. And
that's really because that was a real tricky thing that the judge said, well, it's not Colorado deciding. You guys are going to decide. But that's not the case, actually. The Supreme Court decision that's in front of the court right now is not to decide whether Donald Trump can run for office or not. I know that you'll see people in the media and on cable news sort of shorthand it that way and make it sound that way. But that's not technically what they're deciding. What they're deciding is whether Colorado can decide if Donald Trump can be on the ballot or not. That's the argument. So the Supreme Court is not making a federal national decision for the country. They're just saying whether Colorado can make this decision unilaterally. And that's what she points out here. But it's an incredibly important and deceptive answer from the attorney. You see how they're trying to do this, right? You see what they're trying to do to you to take you out. And I just want to be clear here, just real fast, because there's more of these arguments. This is not about Donald Trump's rights. This argument today is not about the right for Donald Trump to run for president. This is about your right to vote for him. The Democrats in Colorado, the Democrats in Maine, in the Secretary of State's office, the Democrats in any other state that are trying to do this, they're not trying to stop Donald Trump from being president. They're trying to stop you from even having the opportunity to vote for Donald Trump for president. This is an attack on you, not on Donald Trump. All right, back to the arguments.
and saying, why should that be the right rule? Why should a single state have the ability to make this determination, not only for their own citizens, but for the rest of the nation?
Because Article 2 gives them the power to appoint their own electors as they see fit. But if they're going to use a federal constitutional qualification as a ballot access determinant, then it's creating a federal constitutional question that then this court decides, and other courts, other states, if this court affirms the decision below, determining that President Trump is ineligible to be president, other states would still have to determine what effect that would have on their own state's law and state procedure.
Well, I mean, if we affirmed and we said he was ineligible to be president, yes, maybe some states would say, well, you know, we're going to keep him on the ballot anyway. But I mean, really, it's going to have, as Justice Kagan said, the effect of Colorado deciding. And it's true. I just want to push back a little bit on, well, it's a national thing because this court will decide it. You say that we have to review Colorado's factual record with clear error as the standard of review. So we would be stuck. The first mover state here, Colorado, we're stuck with that record. And, you know, I don't want to get into whether the record, I mean, maybe the record is great, but what if the record wasn't? I mean, what if it wasn't a fulsome record? What if, you know, the hearsay rules are, you know, one-offs? Or what if this is just made by the Secretary of State without much process at all? How do we review those factual findings? Why should clear error review apply? And doesn't that just kind of buckle back into this point that Justice Kagan was making, you know, that we made with Mr. Mitchell too, that it just doesn't seem like a state call?
Yeah, and a lot of legal ease there, but let me just break it down for you. What Justice Coney Barrett is saying there is that we're going to get stuck with this decision. You know, this is Colorado. Colorado's the first one up to the plate. And whatever we decide here about what Colorado has the right to do with regard to disqualifying a candidate from the ballot based on the 14th Amendment, it's not like when another state comes up to us with the same argument that we can then say, oh, but in Maine, it's a different story. No, this is, you're forcing this national decision based on what this one state has done. And it's clear that the state does not have the power to do this. At least it's clear for me. And it seems pretty clear from the arguments that are being made, or at least the direction these arguments are going. All right, real fast, one more aspect of the Supreme Court's arguments today. This came from Brett Kavanaugh. And frankly, I think this is the most important, most compelling point of all. And Justice Kavanaugh makes it very succinctly here. It's not a long clip. Let's go to it.
He had the opportunity to call witnesses remotely. He didn't use all of his time at trial. There was ample process here, and this is how ballot access determinations in election cases are decided all the time.
Okay. Second question. Some of the rhetoric of your position, I don't think it is your position, but some of the rhetoric of your position seems to suggest unless the states can do this, no one can prevent insurrectionists from holding federal office. But obviously Congress has enacted statutes, including one still in effect, Section 2383 of Title 18 prohibits insurrection. It's a federal criminal statute. And if you're convicted of that, you are, it says, shall be disqualified from holding any office. And so there is a federal statute on the books, but President Trump has not been charged with that. So what are we to make of that?
And there's literally no answer to it, because that is the slam dunk, game over, pack your bags, go home, Colorado, this is over question. You're claiming that Donald Trump is ineligible from being on the ballot for president because he's guilty of insurrection, and the 14th Amendment says that someone guilty of insurrection can't be on the ballot. And yet, not only has Donald Trump never been found guilty of insurrection, he's never had the opportunity to defend himself from charges of insurrection because Donald Trump has never been charged with insurrection. So how exactly does the Supreme Court of Colorado just decide, well, he's guilty of insurrection, so he can't be on the ballot? Now, they claim it was based on the findings of the January 6th Commission. Thank you, Liz Cheney. But that's ridiculous. Not only did he not have a chance to defend himself, again, little thing called due process in our country, from the charges of the January 6th Commission, but his own political party was precluded from being represented on that commission. And finally, and most importantly, we have a mechanism in the Constitution to find a president guilty of high crimes and misdemeanors. It's called impeachment. And he was impeached for January 6th, and the Senate did not convict him. So by definition, he is not guilty of the charges that were in that impeachment related to January 6th. So how can someone be kept off a ballot for insurrection when he hasn't actually been found guilty of insurrection? And that's truly the crux of these arguments today. But I do want to remind you, no matter how this decision comes down, and I pray not only that the Supreme Court rejects what Colorado and Democrats are trying to do to you, but I pray that it's a unanimous decision. We can't handle a 5-4 decision. It will continue to divide us. I hope Justice Roberts figures out a way, Chief Justice Roberts figures out a way to get a unanimous or near unanimous decision out of the Supreme Court. It would be so critically important. But understand this, if you take anything away from this entire proceeding, this is not about Donald Trump. It's not about Joe Biden. It's not about Republicans and Democrats. This ultimately is about you. They are terrified that you're going to vote for someone that they don't approve of. They are terrified that you will actually do what you did in 2016 and in 2020 and vote for a man that they just can't imagine being back in the White House again. They're doing whatever they can to take your vote away from you. Big news from the House of Mouse. Disney is going to revitalize the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise, and they're really, really going to make a big splash with new casting in the character of Captain Jack Sparrow. Captain Jack Sparrow is no longer that crazy white guy, Johnny Depp. No, now Captain Jack Sparrow is going to be a black, female, queer socialist. I don't think any of us saw that one coming. Ayo Edebiri, she's a Emmy award-winning actress. She's on the show The Bear. If you watch on Hulu, it's actually a pretty good show. And she's actually a fine actress and a pretty funny comedian as well. She's the one who's being rumored now as the replacement for Jack Sparrow. Now, I'm guessing the character won't actually be Jack Sparrow. It's going to be some facsimile thereof. But boy, count on Disney for just doing exactly what Disney's going to do. I mean, honestly, it's like a punchline of a joke. This one is. And how ticked off should for Johnny Depp be in all of this? Yeah, I almost called him Jack Sparrow because he has created this character out of nothing. If you've read into the creation of the first Pirates of the Caribbean film and the writing of the script and the creation of the character, what you see on screen as the iconic, amazing, memorable, historic, one for the books, Captain Jack Sparrow, it's all Johnny Depp. He created all of it. He created the look. He created the speech pattern. He created the voice and the accent. He created all of it. It's all him. And now Disney's going to figure out a way to have this black, queer, socialist actress replicate it and do her own thing, but in a very woke and understandable way. Because let's face it, back then, I want to be clear, there were female pirates, and Disney has suggested that she's going to be playing a character that's loosely based on a real life pirate from Ireland. I know she doesn't look Irish, but I'm sure they're going to figure that out. She's originally from Massachusetts. A lot of Irish people in Massachusetts. She was born of a Nigerian father and a Barbadian mother. And again, I want to say she's very talented and she's very funny and she's a good actress and she's popular and she could very well sell a lot of tickets. But I got an idea, Disney. Forgive me if this is going to rub anybody the wrong way, but how about you write something new? It's like we want to elevate Ayo Edebiri, the black queer socialist. We want to advance her career and we want to build a whole franchise around her. So let's do Pirates of the Caribbean 7. No. How about you actually get creative and write something new, something specific for her and create a whole cinematic universe around her, like you did with Johnny Depp. But instead, everything's derivative. Everything, all right, let's just take Johnny Depp out and we'll put this woman in and everything will be fine and we'll satisfy the woke crowd. It's ridiculous. It's insane. It's Disney. And by the way, it's nothing new. I mean, let's face it, all you're seeing out of the House of Mouse right now is just sequel after sequel after sequel after sequel, whether it's Toy Story 72 or whether it's Star Wars 12 and a half. Or don't even get me started on the Marvel universe. They're just figuring out a way to regurgitate and spit out the same old thing year after year after year. And unless it stars Chris Pratt, it ain't doing well at the box office. And one great example of that was the show Mandalorian on Disney Plus. The first season was actually quite creative. It was quite new. They actually were able to create a whole new storyline within the Star Wars cinematic universe, and people loved it. People flocked to it. One of the reasons they loved it was because of the character Gina Carano created on Mandalorian, right? She was great. She was very popular, and through the second season, the ratings were through the roof. She was second only to Baby Yoda in popularity. But then Disney fired her. Why? Because she was a bad actress? No. Because she didn't show up on time? No. because she was rude and offensive to her coworkers on set. No. It wasn't any of those reasons. They fired her because she tweeted things that Disney didn't like. They fired her because she tweeted things complaining about the lockdown and questioning the science behind the social distancing and masking protocols during the pandemic. You know, the things that Anthony Fauci now admits were not really real or effective. Anthony Fauci has literally said that the 6-foot social distancing rule just sort of came out of nowhere, and he has no idea where it came from. Gina Carano challenged social distancing and masking, and she got fired by Disney for doing that. She got fired by Disney because she tweeted things that suggested that maybe Black Lives Matter is not the nicest and friendliest political movement. In fact, they're Marxists, and it's quite possible that the people at the top are corrupt, which of course we've learned now they certainly appear to be, since all of the money BLM collected seems to have gone away, except for the founders buying a whole lot of million-dollar homes around the country. Gina Carano got fired by Disney for tweeting those things. And now Gina Carano is fighting back. She took to, what used to be Twitter, now it's X.com, and she announced that she was filing a lawsuit against Lucasfilm and Disney. A little bit of her tweet on this. After my 20 years of building a career from scratch, and during the regime of former Disney CEO Bob Chapek, Lucasfilm made this statement on Twitter terminating me from The Mandalorian, quoting, Gina Carano is not currently employed by Lucasfilm, and there are no plans for her to be in the future. Nevertheless, her social media posts denigrating people based on their cultural and religious identities are abhorrent and unacceptable. Now, let's be clear here about why this lawsuit is so important, because it's not just wrongful termination, firing me because of my political views, yada, 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 things like that. I mean, theoretically, people can be fired in certain states in this country for their political views. I say certain states because some states have actually enacted some laws that say, no, you can't fire somebody for their political views. Interestingly, California is one of those states. But on a federal level, there is no federal protection for you for being fired for your political views, right? You can't be fired for your religion or for your sex or for your sexual orientation, I believe is now protected. But a physical or handicap or disability, can't be fired for that either. But right now, theoretically, you could be fired in terms of federal law. Some states do have some provisions that protect you for your political views too. But understand something clearly. This is not about Disney clearly attacking her and punishing her because she's not as woke as the Disney CEO and the producing team at Disney wanted her to be. No. The lawsuit has to do with how they defamed her when they fired her. It was that statement. Disney could have kept their mouth shut. Disney could have just put out a one-line statement saying Gina Carano is no longer employed with Lucasfilm or Disney, period. And said, any more questions you can ask Ms. Carano. They could have done that, and they may have avoided this lawsuit, but they couldn't help themselves. They had to flex. They had to virtue signal. They had to trash Gina Carano because guess what? Gina Carano isn't liberal. She isn't woke. She's not on our team, so it's okay to trash her. It's okay to attack her. Everyone's going to celebrate us for that, right? Well, now Gina Carano is suing because of it, and good for her. By the way, she's being supported in this lawsuit by none other than the X corporation owned by Elon Musk. Yeah, Elon Musk, when he bought Twitter and changed the name to X and then tried to change some of the policies with regard to canceling and censoring and deplatforming people who had wrongthink on the website. He actually said to people, if you were fired, if you were terminated, if you were discriminated against because of something you said on Twitter, let me know and we'll take up your cause. Well, Gina Carano did that. She did. She sort of clicked on his tweet and saw that there was a little link for a form to fill out. And she filled it out and she waited a few months. And next thing you know, X called her and said, you know what, Gina, we want to take up your lawsuit. So now she's got quite a bit of funding and backing for this lawsuit, doesn't she? And you'll remember a few weeks back when Disney decided to pull all their advertising from X.com because they believed that Elon Musk was anti-Semitic or whatever it is Media Matters slimed him with. And you remember Elon's response, right? I believe there was an F word involved. Yeah, this is personal for Elon Musk against Disney, and it's going to get ugly for Disney. In fact, Elon Musk also tweeted out about the Gina Carano lawsuit. If anyone else out there has been discriminated against by Disney or ESPN or Marvel or Lucasfilm, let me know, and we'll take up your cause as well. He also tweeted out this document that an insider at Disney shared with him. This is the inclusion standards that Disney has put forth for their general entertainment content. You can go ahead and find it online. It's got a lot of small print, but let me just tell you in general, the guidelines are about inclusion on screen and in the content of the storylines that the entertainment division is portraying. And also people the creative forces that are working on the shows or on the projects that Disney is responsible for. And under the guise of inclusion standards, it lays out quotas and it lays out people who are included and excluded. You see, if you bend over backwards to make sure that people of a certain color or a certain gender identity or sexual orientation, if you're making sure that they're being included and deciding that you're going to hire them based on those criteria, that means by definition, you are excluding people who don't fit into that criteria. And that, my friends, is called discrimination. And that certainly seems to be what Disney is guilty of here. We're going to watch this play out. We're popping the popcorn. We're watching the whole thing. I pray to God Gina Carano does not settle out of court. I want her to take this all the way to a verdict, and I want to see Disney squirm because they've gone woke. And frankly, they deserve to go broke. The fallout from that disastrous Senate border security deal continues. And last night, we saw a fabulous, fabulous moment where Senator Chris Murphy, one of the lead negotiators in this thing, said the quiet part out loud regarding where the Democrats' real priorities are. Take a look at this clip. It's revealing in multiple ways, and we're going to break it down the way we're the best at. Watch.
The negotiation didn't have a path to citizenship. It was entirely on their terms in order to get Ukraine funding, right?
Well, I mean, Chris, that's been a failed play for 20 years. So right. You are right that has been the Democratic strategy for 30 years, maybe. And it has failed to deliver for the people we care about most, the undocumented Americans that are in this country.
All righty. Boy, oh boy, is this good stuff. What is this? Just 33 seconds long, and we have absolute gold to mine, and we're going to take it from the beginning. Let's stay side by side here if we could, because I'm going to stop and start a lot, because you need to see exactly what they're saying here. First, Chris Hayes is just incredulous that Republicans didn't go along with it. Why?
The negotiation didn't have a path to citizenship. It was entirely on their terms in order to get Ukraine funding.
Right? All right. So right there, you guys went the extra mile. You didn't even demand amnesty for the millions of people who have broken our immigration laws and come into this country and continue to break laws by working in this country without documentation. But you are so great that you took amnesty off the table. And why? Why did you take amnesty off the table? So you could get this deal with Ukraine funding. It all comes back to Ukraine funding. Normally, you see, Democrats would insist on amnesty. They'd insist on letting everybody off the hook and giving them citizenship so they can vote. You see how that works. Normally, they would demand that. But funding Ukraine was so important that they were willing to take that off the table. That's an amazing, revealing statement there where Chris Hayes, I think, is trying to make Republicans look bad, and he has no idea how bad he just made Democrats look. But then Chris Murphy, the senator from Connecticut, takes it one step further.
Well, I mean, Chris, that's been a failed play for 20 years. So right. You are right that has been the Democratic strategy for 30 years, maybe.
Great revelation there, too. Yeah, every time we say we want comprehensive immigration reform, we demand on pathway to citizenship, we demand on amnesty, We demand that the people who have come here illegally and broken our laws and continue to break our laws get citizenship and get relief from any penalty that they might have to rightfully, justly suffer for breaking our laws. And yeah, that doesn't seem to have worked for the last 20 or 30 years. In other words, if I may rephrase what the good senator from Connecticut just told you, for the last 3 decades, Democrats are the ones who have been stopping any kind of real border security or immigration reform because we have stubbornly and obstinately demanded amnesty. And it never works. But for 30 years, we kept trying. He just admitted it right there in front of you. Thank you. It's something we've been saying for quite some time. But then the pièce de résistance, the fight, boy, when they aren't scripted, when they're not on their talking points, when they're thrown a curveball by a softball kind of journalist, they say stuff they really don't want to reveal.
And it has failed to deliver for the people we care about most, the undocumented Americans that are in this country.
It has failed to deliver for the people we care about most, we the Democrats, the people we care about most, the illegal immigrants. Or as he puts it, undocumented Americans, which, by the way, it's amazing to me. Let's call them Americans. They have come here illegally from God knows what country, 150 different countries around the world. They could have come here from communist China, and they're in this country illegally. And Chris Murphy, Democrat senator from Connecticut, affords them the label Americans. Oh, you're an American. You're here. You've come here 4 months ago illegally. And in fact, you may have even come here for nefarious, illegal purposes. But as far as I'm concerned, you're an American. You just lack a document. You know, those 19 terrorists who executed the September 11th terror attacks, who were in this country illegally, they were just Americans without documents. That's the thought process here from the Democrats. And as he just put it here, those Americans without documents who you and I would call, and what the law actually refers to them as, illegal aliens, illegal immigrants. That's the legal description of the people Chris Murphy is talking about here. Those are the people that he and the other Democrats care most about. That's what he said. We're having a debate in this country about our borders, about immigration, about illegal immigrants. And when Democrats come into the room, their priority, the people they care most about, are the illegal immigrants. Not the rights of American citizens, not the rights of legal immigrants, not the rights of legal residents who are waiting in line to become legal citizens the right way. He doesn't care about the people who are seeing their children die from fentanyl. They don't care about the people who live on the border, who are seeing their property that they own in America trespassed on, destroyed, trashed. They don't care about the people of New York or Chicago or Philadelphia or Washington, D.C. or any other major city who is now going broke because of all of the Americans without documentation that Chris Murphy and the Democrats care most about. Nope, they don't care about any of those people. Or at least they don't care about them as much as they care about the illegal immigrants. That's what Democrat Senator of Connecticut, Chris Murphy, just said on behalf of his party. I love clarity. Honestly, at least the cards are on the table. Thank you for admitting it. Thank you for saying it out loud. It's actually refreshing. In fact, he's not the only one who said things out loud. We've got a couple of more examples here. Let's start with Justin Trudeau, the Prime Minister of Canada. You know, he's facing a challenge from a conservative leader, Pierre Poilievre. We've played his videos quite a bit here. We think he's pretty great, and we promise to learn to pronounce his name properly in Quebecois if he wins. Well, Justin Trudeau got so worked up on the floor of the House of Commons in Canada that he, again, also said the quiet part out loud.
Mr. Speaker, what we hear from the leader of the opposition is under the previous conservative government, everything was perfect. And what he is proposing to do is to make Canada great again. That is not what Canadians want. He is pining for a nostalgia.
He's promising to make Canada great again, and that's not what Canadians want. They want Canada to stay lousy. And I'm the man to do it. Vote for me, Justin Trudeau. They get so wrapped up in their rage, their white-hot rage against crazy MAGA extremists, that they say stuff like that. He promises to make Canada great again. Well, Canadians don't want that. That's why they vote for me. You laugh about it, and we do have to laugh about it, but can we remember how serious this issue is? The Democrats in the Senate, who are Chris Murphy's colleagues and his pals over there in the Biden administration and in the Department of Homeland Security, they are absolutely crapping on the American people with this issue, and they're brazen about it. And now they're treating this entire issue like a hostage situation, like they're terrorists. They demand that border bill with Ukraine funding. And if they don't get it, well, according to Fox News is reporting, the White House is saying that if they don't get what they want, if they don't get their Ukraine funding, if they don't get their treasured border bill that actually makes the border security problem worse, then they'll reduce the number of deportations over there at ICE. The White House is saying we will reduce deportations, we will reduce detention capacity, we will make the situation worse deliberately if you don't give us what you want. That's a terrorist threat. These are the supposed to be people who are on our side. But of course, thanks to Senator Murphy, we know they're not on our side. We're not the ones they care about most. And just to bring it home, Donald Trump has released a brand new campaign ad that really does remind you what's at stake here. There's a lot of words thrown around like amnesty and asylum and illegal immigration and migrants' rights, and it gets clouded. You know, everybody's got their vernacular, everybody's got their little buzzwords that they like to throw out there to make their side of the political argument come out right. And now you got Joe Biden brazenly lying on the campaign trail, claiming, yeah, we've got chaos on the border and it's all Trump's fault, which nobody believes. And certainly the media doesn't believe it, but I don't see any fact checking going on. We can get lost in all of this. I can get lost in this. I know you can get lost in this as you start debating it. Well, this ad from Donald Trump, he brings home exactly what's at stake here. He brings home exactly the difference between the Biden way of securing the border and the Trump way of securing the border. He shows you in this ad exactly what's going on and why it's going on. Take a look.
6 men have been charging that brutal attack caught on camera.
A shocking act of violence. 2 NYPD officers beaten in Times Square. All of those arrested were released without bail.
Why did these 4 individuals be released on their own recognizance?
The Biden administration is fighting to release as many migrants as quickly as possible.
I'll reverse Trump's detrimental asylum policies. There's no need for us.
Biden administration reversed Trump's policy on remain in Mexico.
Joe Biden to stop construction of the border wall.
It's a new day on the southern border. Here we go. The policy that made it easy to kick out migrants is gone.
He inherited the lowest rate of illegal immigration, and he immediately reinstated catch and release. And so when they apprehend people, they let them go.
I'll reverse Trump's detrimental asylum policies.
Wow. That is freaking 5 stars, that ad. 5 out of 5, of course. Right now, polls show that the border issue and crime as a result of illegal immigration are the top issues American voters care most about. And if that's the case, that ad should end this discussion. That's why Democrats are lying to you. That's why Joe Biden is lying to you. That's why the media is allowing them to lie to you, because they know what kind of trouble they're in. Keep the faith. You keep the focus. The anger over Tucker Carlson interviewing Vladimir Putin continues to rage on the left and in some quarters of the right as well. This isn't a typical black and white conservative liberal issue. But if you're one of those conservatives who are also sort of questioning whether it's appropriate for a journalist to actually interview a world leader, if you're actually swayed by the idea that Tucker Carlson should be deported and stripped of his citizenship and have sanctions against him in Europe because he's interviewing Vladimir Putin, because he's just allowing him to spew his propaganda, and Tucker Carlson is a puppet and being used as a tool. If you're inclined to think, maybe that's a good point, I want you to pause for a second and realize who else is on your side with that issue. This lady is on your side. And I don't know, maybe it's me, but when you're talking about Russian propaganda and when you're talking about being a propaganda tool of Vladimir Putin, when you're talking about lying to advance a political agenda, maybe she's not the best person to speak on the behalf of your cause.
I mean, he's like a puppy dog. You know, he somehow has, after having been fired from so many outlets in the United States, I would not be surprised if he emerges with a contract with an outlet, because he is a useful idiot. He says things that are not true. He parrots Vladimir Putin's pack of lies about Ukraine. So I don't see why Putin wouldn't give him an interview, because through him, he can, continue to lie about what his, objectives are in Ukraine and what he expects to see happen. It's really quite sad that not just somebody like Tucker Carlson, who has, as I said, been fired so many times because he seems unable to, correlate his reporting with the truth, but also because it's a sign that there are people in this country right now who are like a fifth column for Vladimir Putin. And why? I don't know. I mean, why are certain Republicans throwing their lot in? Why are, other Americans basically believing Putin? Why did Trump believe Putin more than our 11 intelligence agencies?
I don't know. Do you have a working theory?
I do have a working theory.
Well, there she goes again. You know what the working theory is. Trump's just in league with Putin. Trump stole the election for Vladimir Putin. No, Vladimir Putin stole the 2016 election for Trump. They're right back at it with the Steele dossier and Russian collusion. And I didn't really lose the election. It was stolen. And gosh, why would Trump believe Vladimir Putin over our 11 intelligence agencies? Well, I don't know why you would believe Vladimir Putin necessarily, but I do have a pretty good idea why you wouldn't believe our 11 intelligence agencies, because sadly, our 11 intelligence agencies have been politicized. Don't believe me? Take a look at the Hunter Biden laptop story, where we had 51 intelligence agency veterans guaranteeing that was Russian disinformation. And well, then about a year later, apparently even the New York Times recognized that it wasn't. In fact, just this last month, the Biden Justice Department conceded in a federal court that the Hunter Biden laptop wasn't Russian disinformation. So, geez, it seems like, the intelligence agencies don't always tell us the truth about some things, especially as it relates to Russia. Hillary Clinton, by the way, making fun of Tucker Carlson for being a puppy dog and not asking the tough questions and not participating in a real hard-nosed interview, while Alex Wagner is sitting across from her on MSNBC like this. I mean, do they even see themselves? Look at Alex Wagner here. Look at the body language. Look at here.
I mean, why are certain Republicans throwing their lot in? Why are, other Americans basically believing Putin? Why did Trump believe Putin more than our 11 intelligence agencies?
I don't know. Do you have a working theory?
Yeah, we want Tucker Carlson to be a real hard-nosed, tough journalist and ask the really tough questions like Alex Wagner is doing right here. I mean, look at her. It's ridiculous on the face of it. But of course, Hillary Clinton can't stop herself Here she is, hammering Tucker Carlson and calling him a useful idiot, and then taking it even further.
It's more than just the political partisan advantage. There is a yearning for leaders who can kill and imprison their opponents, destroy the press, lead a life that is one of impunity, unbound by any laws. There's a yearning among certain people in our country for that kind of leadership. And I find that absolutely gobsmacking terrifying.
I mean, do you want to tell her? Should I tell her? Who's going to tell her? I know Alex Wagner isn't going to tell her. I'm sorry, there's a yearning for a leader who imprisons and murders their opponents. I mean, this is Hillary telling us this. And by the way, there's also a yearning for leaders who keep all of their work emails a secret from the American people who are paying for them. There's a yearning for the American people to have a leader who makes millions of dollars from foreign interests and then hides them in accounts so that you can't see them. There's a yearning for leaders whose husbands will go to a hostile nation and collect $500,000 for a speaking fee. There's a yearning for leaders whose sons and brothers will make millions of dollars from hostile nations doing business with the government while that leader is actually in the government. Does she recognize who she's describing here? But of course she doesn't. And this is even the other side of that coin that's frankly more enraging. Not only does she not realize that she and her husband and the Bidens and the Democrats, when they're in power, are guilty of exactly what she's describing here, but more importantly, what she really thinks is you want a murdering dictator as your leader, right? I mean, think about the logic of her position here. She's right back to the deplorables thing. She has such contempt for American voters who dare to disagree with her politically. You don't think I would have been the greatest president of all time? You voted for Donald Trump instead of me? Well, there's something wrong with you. You have the yearning for a dictator, for a strong man who will murder his opponents. What a despicable human being she continues to be. And sadly, we're not done. There's even more from Hillary Clinton in this interview. By the way, I'd love to show you the part where Alex Wagner asks a couple of tough questions about her history and some of the criminal behavior in Haiti and the Clinton Global Initiative and the grift and all that stuff. But that never happened. I have not seen the Tucker Carlson interview of Vladimir Putin yet. It's not going to be released until later tonight. But I guarantee you that there are tougher questions from Tucker Carlson directed at Vladimir Putin than there was anything from Alex Wagner directed at Hillary Clinton. Guaranteed.
This particular issue, if I were the Supreme Court, I wouldn't want to wade into this. It's such a good opinion, I would deny cert, let the opinion stand. It's in line with previous opinions. When Trump made the argument about, this will hamstring future presidents. Well, he's the only one who has been in this position. And he is the only one who has claimed such broad blanket immunity. And we know what his real thoughts are. Remember, I could shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue. My supporters wouldn't care. He thinks that he should be above the law, that he should be able to manipulate the law. The last time I checked, despite Trump and his supporters' efforts to undermine this, we were a nation based on the rule of law, not on the rule of individual men, the way that Trump keeps trying to claim.
I mean, as someone who ran for the presidency and won the popular vote, is it like, can you even wrap your head around arguing in court that you should be able to assassinate your political enemies using SEAL Team 6? I mean, how did that argument land with you?
Yeah, you see what I mean. We really need to have hard-hitting journalists like Alex Wagner asking the tough questions here whenever possible. But can we just stop for a moment, marinate and ruminate on Hillary Clinton saying that Donald Trump thinks that the laws don't apply to him? that Donald Trump thinks that he should be above the law, that Donald Trump actually has some level of corruption with regard to how he approaches the presidency or public service. This is Hillary Clinton saying that. And instead of Alex Wagner with her fawning and her admiration and her pep squad little cheerleader reaction to Hillary Clinton, wouldn't it have been fascinating for the reporter who lands the interview with Hillary Clinton to stop right there and say, you know, Secretary Clinton, I got to ask you, there are a lot of people who will hear you say that right now, and they'll think, wait a second, how many times in Hillary Clinton's career in public service has she been above the law? That she has said that the rules don't apply to her. For instance, we have a sailor on a submarine who took a picture of the interior of that submarine, and he got convicted for taking that picture, and he's in jail right now. And under the exact same law, it would apply to you having federal documents in a private email server during your time as Secretary of State, but the law didn't apply to you. Do you see how people could hear you say this and actually think that you're being a hypocrite? What's your response to that, Secretary Clinton? But of course, Alex Wagner didn't ask that question. And there is no reporter who would ever get an interview with Hillary Clinton who would ask that question. Otherwise, they wouldn't get the interview. But yes, please, let's ask Hillary Clinton about Tucker Carlson engaging in propaganda with Vladimir Putin. But just make sure, while you're asking Hillary Clinton about Tucker Carlson engaging in propaganda with Vladimir Putin, you don't ask Hillary Clinton any tough questions about her checkered career, because we wouldn't want any of that. Well, it's been quite a week for Joe Biden and his lack of mental clarity, because he told a story, as you know, earlier in the week where he was relaying a discussion he had with world leaders, and he mistakenly referred to the president of France as President Mitterrand, referring to Francois Mitterrand, who actually died in 1996, which begs the question, did Joe Biden just mistakenly think that President Macron was President Mitterrand, or does he actually think that he was speaking with President Mitterrand? Either way, we deserve an answer, don't we? And then the next day, he couldn't remember the name of the terror group Hamas that just carried out the October 7th terrorist attacks. He was lost. He couldn't come up with the name. He called them the opposition. Then thankfully, a reporter bailed him out and said, it's Hamas, right? As if he's watching a game show or something, or Jeopardy. And they say, yeah, that's right, Hamas. That's who I meant. That was disconcerting enough. Well, now, apparently, third time's the charm. He did it again. Jackie Heinrich over there at Fox News tells about another dead foreign leader.
For the second time this week, Biden told a story about a 2021 summit detailing a conversation with a foreign leader who died years ago. The last time he told this exact same story on Sunday, he swapped out French President Macron for the late French President Mitterrand, who died in 1996. This time he swapped out German Chancellor Angela Merkel for the late German Chancellor Helmut Kohl, who died in 2017. Talking about January 6th, Biden said, quote, I sat down and I said, well, America's back. And the president of France looked at me and said, for how long? I never thought of it this way. Then Helmut Kohl of Germany looked at me and said, what would you say, Mr. President, if you picked up the London Times tomorrow morning and learned that 1,000 people had broken down the doors? Biden's aides apparently never told him that he screwed up, because he told this exact same story using Helmut Kohl's name at two events last night, 30 blocks and 3 avenues apart. So during the long motorcade, no one told the president that he got it wrong, and you should probably fix it for the next event. Guys.
You're probably right. So, Jackie, your colleague Peter Doocy asked Karine Jean-Pierre about, why is the president saying he just talked to a dead guy? And she said, I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole. At some point, they're going to have to address he's messing stuff up.
Yeah, and it's, hard to argue that it's a rabbit hole when you have an NBC poll showing 76% of voters have serious concerns or major concerns about whether the president's mental fitness can withstand another 4 years. That's a huge chunk of people, and it's not Republicans only in that poll. This is just registered voters.
Jackie,
so,
I don't know if you had a chance to look at it yet, but a lot of times they change the transcript.
and fix it?
They did say I think they said they were going to.
Did they change Helmut Kohl out too?
I haven't seen the official transcript yet. The pool reports came out late last night because he had a couple of events back to back. Usually the official transcript comes out sometime in the next 24 hours. They did, though, fix the Sunday one, and they strike through Mitterrand and they put in parentheses Macron. They don't ever announce when they do this, but they also don't conceal it. You know, they strike it out and then put the correction in there. If you were to comb through for all of the strike throughs in the White House reports, you'd probably get a lot.
All right. Couple things to unpack here. First of all, that last point about, fixing the transcripts where they come back in and fix it. There's another word for that. They lie. They lie. They actually erase history. At a time when we're hearing a whole lot about journalists acting as propagandists and how dare you be a mouthpiece for the state and all that stuff, we're actually talking openly about how the White House goes in and basically erases history and rewrites history to make the president look good, or at the very least, look not so bad. Secondly, mistaking Macron for Mitterrand, I sort of get it. Just hear me out here. Macron's only been president for a few years. Mitterrand was president for like 15 years. And it was back during Joe Biden's heyday when his brain was functioning a little bit more on speed, like 25, 30 years ago, right? And it's two French guys, and both of their names start with the letter M. Okay, so they really could have spun this, and they would have gotten away with it. Angela Merkel is the Chancellor of Germany, and she's a very petite woman. Helmut Kohl, who again is dead, when he was Chancellor of Germany, was actually a very tall in stature man. So this is a lot more than just mistaking Angela Merkel for Helmut Kohl. This is somehow in your brain removing the mental image of a little woman you were talking to and replacing her with a towering man that you were talking to. In Joe Biden's brain, like when you recall a conversation to somebody, in your head, in your mind's eye, you see the picture of that conversation that took place. And it never occurred to him that he's referring to a woman as Helmut Kohl, a man's name? It goes well beyond just making a mistake, right? And then we started thinking, first Francois Mitterrand, then Helmut Kohl. This isn't the first time that Joe Biden has pretended to see dead people. Who can forget this from about a year and a half ago?
Now, an awkward moment at the White House today. President Biden gave a shout out to a congresswoman that he thought was there. But one problem, she died last month.
President Biden is raising eyebrows today after this embarrassing moment. At a White House ceremony on hunger, he called out the name of a congresswoman. Problem is, she's dead.
Representative Jackie, are you here? Where's Jackie? I didn't think she was going to be here.
Jackie is the late congresswoman from Indiana, Jackie Walorski, who was killed in a car accident in August with two young staffers. White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre was asked about the episode at the regular briefing today.
The president appeared to look around the room for an audience member, a member of Congress who passed away last month. He seemed to indicate she might be in the room. What happened?
The president was naming the congressional champions on this issue and was acknowledging her incredible work. She was on his mind. She was of top of mind. Representative
Jackie, are you here? Where's Jackie?
Wow, she was bad at lying about him and covering him up even back then, Karine Jean-Pierre. Oh, she was on his mind. She was top of mind. That's all. No, that's not the point. He thought she was still alive. Could you address that, please? And of course she won't. They're just pretending that everything's fine. But it's clear that Joe Biden sees dead people. Even without the charming aspect of Haley Joel Osment in The Sixth Sense. Although, honestly, at this point, I would settle for maybe the second or third sense from this president. Six is asking for way too much. And if you don't think this is a problem, what would you consider to be a problem from the man with the nuclear codes and his finger on the button. Also, by the way, lost in all of this is the fact that 3 times now in the last 4 days, he has told the exact same story to 3 different audiences. Yes, he's gotten some names wrong in telling the story, but even that, I mean, if I showed up here every day and delivered the exact same report to you with the exact same opinion, with the exact same words, you wouldn't be concerned that I got a name wrong here and there. You'd think that I'm losing it because I'm telling the exact same story over and over and over again. That in and of itself is disconcerting. And then after this event in New York, by the way, you notice he travels for fundraisers quite a bit, but he still hasn't gone to East Palestine, Ohio to visit the people after the chemical spill. But if there's a fundraiser there, I'll go. And well, he went to New York for this fundraiser. And I want you to take a look at him as he returned to the White House, stepping off Marine One on the South Lawn. Do you notice anything about his gait, about the way he carries himself, about the way that he seems to have trouble with every single step, about the way he neglected to salute the Marines standing at the bottom of the stairs? The fact that it's very difficult for him to keep a straight line as he walks. Do you notice that this is a man in crisis, in physical and mental crisis? I think you've noticed it. Most of us have noticed it. I guarantee you the people who are closest to him have noticed it. The people who work with him, the people who are his closest friends, and the people who call themselves his loving family. Of course they've noticed it. They know. And yet they refuse to say anything about it or do anything about it. And they not only claim to love this man, they claim to love this country. And they continue to put us in peril. Boy, they must know that Kamala Harris is a disaster. That's it for today. Thanks for watching. Thanks for being a part of our ever-growing audience. By the way, thanks for leaving comments. Trying to come by and see as many comments as possible and replying. If you've got questions for me or anything you want to say, if you've got criticism for these glasses, let me know and I'll get a new pair. That's how much I want to keep you as our audience. Please share these videos with your friends on Facebook. If you like any of the individual segments we did, we break them out on their own. So go ahead and send that along on your social media, and we will see you next time. Thanks for watching. I'm Larry O'Connor, and of course, you can call me Larry.